County Department of Social Services Board of Directors meeting to order. This is March the 9th, 2021. And I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on February the 9th, 2021? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor? Do we have anyone for public comment? We do not. Okay. I will recognize Director Chris Weatherford. And with that, the rest of the group.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. To start us off, I've asked Michelle Williams to come and give us sort of an overview of guardianship and what that means and what it doesn't mean. Because I believe I mentioned last meeting that we were starting to see some different kinds of cases come in to our agency that don't fit the normal mold of protective services. And it's not just our agency or our county; it's across the state. And so just wanted to kind of give you guys that information as you're getting stuff throughout the community, gives you something to reference when discussing this topic. So I'll let Michelle take it over for here for a little bit.
I'm not going to read everything. I've tried to put a lot of information into this so that when we move on, have a slow moment or a forward moment. You have something to provide. Well, you can't lose your nose all the way here, it'll be all right. Okay, as the director said, this is about guardianship. I've been doing adult services in this county for, I hate to say this again, but almost 20 years. Majority of the time, it has been working with the elderly and the disabled. If it was someone probably younger than 60s or 70s, it was because they were probably MRDD from birth. Most of the time, it was elderly, it was people who had strokes, it was people who had heart attacks, it was people who had Alzheimer's or any other forms of dementia. That was the main population. But we're seeing a change in things. All counties have seen this. Bigger counties have already been experiencing it for a long time, but it seems to just now really be touching our county, and that is an increase in the younger population, either because they're mentally ill, substance abuse, usually a combination of both. And so we're having to kind of change gears a little bit, learn how to deal with that population, seek out resources, because as I'm sure you know, in all walks of life, just because the needs change doesn't mean the resources change fast enough to keep pace. So, you know, it leaves all counties struggling. So not just us. So first page here, general statutes that govern guardianship use the word ward to describe someone who has a guardian. Well, now they've decided that that's going to be called individual under guardianship. I'll use both interchangeably because I've been using ward for almost 20 years and individual under guardianship for about 2 weeks. So it's going to take me a while. There are different types of guardianship. There's guardian of the person, which is just what it sounds like. This person, their medical care, making sure they have clothes, making sure they have what they need. Guardian of the estate, that's if someone has property, houses, cars, Veterans Administration, retirement fund, pension, stocks, bonds, anything other than their self, and the clothes on their back, basically personal belongings. General guardian is someone who is guardian of both the person and the estate. Back up a second. Usually if they have an estate, we try to get an attorney who specializes in that to handle that end of the guardianship. I'm a social worker. I don't know anything about stocks, bonds, investments, real estate. There are attorneys out there who specialize in that, and that's usually what we ask the court to do, is appoint someone knowledgeable to take care of those things. There's also limited guardianship. It limits the powers and duties assigned to a guardian. Because believe it or not, people are not either just competent or incompetent. as the state describes it, competency is fluid. You can be competent in most areas of your life, but when it comes down maybe to medical decisions, maybe you're incompetent, maybe you need someone else appointed to handle those decisions. Or maybe you can't handle your own money, but you still do good with the day-to-day stuff. So maybe you just need limited guardianship with someone just to handle the financial end of it. So it's not an all or nothing proposition. There are lots of shades of gray. An interim guardian is a short-term guardian, 45 to 90 days. 90 days is max. And it's for urgent situations. For instance, someone has just had a stroke and decisions need to be made right now for their medical care, or they're not going to get any medical care. Because hospitals can't do anything other than save your life if you can't communicate, and no one has the legal authority to do that for you. So you need an interim guardian. You need someone to make sure you're okay for the next 45 to 90 days and until they can get into court for a full-blown hearing. Or maybe after 90 days of medical care, you're going to be fine and you don't need a guardian anymore, they can go away. Or maybe for some reason your money is in danger. Your son, granddaughter, nephew, somebody is siphoning off your money. You're in no situation to protect yourself, but someone needs to step in before every last dollar you have is gone and make sure that your retirement and everything you work for is still there. Maybe they just need short term, until a family member gets up from Texas and can jump in. Maybe they need long term. Again, interim is just to take care of emergency situations right now. Yes?
Is this appointed by an attorney or?
Anybody can petition to be guardian for anybody else, and it is heard by the clerk of court. If it is appealed, it goes to Superior Court. I want to see one appeal, so that was how I took it. Guardianship is very intrusive, can turn your life upside down, can literally, legally can strip away most of your rights, if not all of them. Can. It should be very difficult to get. It's actually the second level of proof. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, it's the next level down. And it should be a last resort after least restrictive options are tried. Some of those least restrictive options, sorry, I'm telling my brain, I'm talking over there now, are Rep payee, representative payee. Maybe your problems can be solved if someone handles your money for you and make sure that the bills are paid and you have a roof over your head and people are taken care of. It can be in the form of a care plan team, which can consist of family and friends that you trust who can help you make decisions. It could be in the form of what they call guided decision making, which could be, again, by a close friend, a family member, an agency, whomever you trust that wants to kind of that will guide you and help you think through these things. It can be hooking you up with services, such as mental health services like the ACT team, which has a psychologist who actually does home visits and a nurse who can help you keep track of your meds, or services with DSS. But the point is, there's lots of other steps that you can take before you go to guardian. It should never be your, let's just go straight to guardian. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Corporations exist to provide guardianship for incompetent persons. A positive about them is they have connections all over the state. That's all they do is guardianships. I do about 6 different things. They just do guardianship. They have offices all across the state. They have built working relationships with mental hospitals, behavioral health units, psychiatrists, placements. If I'm looking for a placement for somebody and I find the only placement handy, and trust me, there are very few around here, for someone who might need a mental health placement. Maybe I find it in Raleigh. Well, I've got to go see this person at least once a month. I've got to attend care plan meetings. I've got to stay in touch with them because I'm in charge of them, just like you're in charge of your 2-year-old when you had kids. So I have to stay in close contact. I'm going to have to send a social worker all the way down to Raleigh and back, maybe a couple times a month. A corporation has offices all across the state. They may just have to send somebody across town. A corporation got somebody into Broughton 2 weeks ago. It takes me 6 months to get someone into Broughton. Mental health services are sketchy, y'all. Legally, the first choice for a guardian is supposed to be an individual. Your family, your friends, people who know you, who care about you, and have your best interests in heart. That should be the first choice for who's going to be in charge of you and help you make decisions with you, not for you. Second choice is a corporation. One of these corporations that I talked about. One that comes to mind is Hope for the Future. They're based in Asheville. There's others. The last choice is a disinterested public agency such as DSS. In the state of North Carolina, we are the only disinterested public agency. But twice as many individuals are guardians as are DSSs in the state of North Carolina. So for every 100 people who have a guardian, roughly 33 or 34 of those people have DSS as a guardian. Roughly 66, 67 have someone, a friend, a family member, the pastor, the trusted teacher, someone who stepped forward and said, I'll do it. Another thing to understand too, for people who maybe want to be guardians of someone, but don't know enough about it, maybe they're afraid, your money does not have to pay for the guardian. For the ward stuff, individual under guardianship. Their cost of care, their food, their groceries, their rent comes out of their money. You are never legally obligated to pay for it out of yours. A lot of people don't know that. I wish more did. Maybe more people would step forward and want to be guardian for family members who need it. You are like a parent. You do not have to take them home with you, but you do have to keep them safe. Try to keep them safe. Because as I'll discuss later on, they have 2 arms, 2 legs, a brain, and they can get into a lot of mischief if they have physical availability to do so. North Carolina General Statute 35A, 12014, limiting the rights of an incompetent person by appointing a guardian for him or her, should not be undertaken unless it's clear that a guardian will give the individual a fuller capacity for exercising his rights. Guardianship is not supposed to be about telling you what you can't do. It's supposed to be about helping you do what you can do, what you want to do, and live the life that you've lived all your life. And now, for whatever reason, you can't do that anymore. You need someone to step up and help you to do that. I always went to church. Now I can't because I have a stroke. My guardian is going to make sure that I get back to church because that's what's been important to me all my life. I've been anti-vaccine all my life. My guardian's going to make sure that nobody straps me down and gives me a vaccine I don't want, because that's my right. You don't have to agree with what they want, but you have to respect it. North Carolina General Statute 35A 12015, guardianship should seek to preserve for the incompetent person the opportunity to exercise those rights that are within his comprehension and judgment, allowing for the possibility of error to the same degree that is allowed to persons who are not competent. We all make mistakes. Wards get to make mistakes too. And just because someone's out there making a mistake doesn't mean they need a guardian. The greatest responsibility the guardian may have is convincing others that an individual under guardianship has the right to engage in behaviors that may pose a risk to him or her. The individual under guardianship should be given every opportunity to take as much control over his or her decision-making as possible, even to the degree of making mistakes. Maybe I think my ward shouldn't smoke because that's going to kill it. Maybe you already have cancer because they still want to smoke. They have the right to make that choice. I don't have the right to stop them. That's their personal choice. Even as guardian, you don't have the right to stop certain things. And that's kind of key to understanding this. Paternalism in guardianship. Paternalism is the policy or practice on the part of people in positions of authority of restricting the freedom and responsibilities of those subordinate to them in the subordinate's supposed best interest. Well, I'm your guardian, and I think you should be Catholic in a Catholic church. I'm going to make you. It doesn't matter if you've been Southern Baptist all your life. It's in your best interest, because I want you to go to heaven. I'm your guardian. I think it's in your best interest to get this surgery, whether you want it or not. It doesn't work that way. That is wrong. That is illegal. That is just sue. Guardianship has sometimes been used inappropriately because individuals with mental illness or developmental delays have been viewed as incapable to make decisions based solely on their mental status and not because they are truly incapable to make decisions in their best interest. One of the examples that the state gave me, all these come out of state trainings that I had just 2 weeks ago. And one of the examples that they gave of someone they did not file guardianship for was someone who was schizophrenic. Schizophrenia comes and goes. When they were not having a schizophrenic episode, they communicated to people that they didn't want to be on medication. It wasn't because the voices in the clouds told them to. It was a very reasonable reason. They didn't like the medicine. They didn't like the way it made them feel. It made them feel fuzzy brain. It made them feel weird, like they couldn't think, and they just didn't want to do it. So they did not file when this person's having episodes to get them a guardian, because that was their choice when they were competent and able to communicate and make these decisions. I don't want meds, I don't need this, so don't tell me I'm incompetent just because I refuse to take it when I'm having an episode. That's their right. Guardianship is not a magic word that solves the ward's problems. Being homeless, having a mental illness, making bad choices, doing drugs, living your life differently than society or community norms, or your neighbor thinks you do. Those do not mean you're incompetent or need a guardian. You don't get to tell me how to live my life, I don't get to tell you how to live your life. I can be weird and different, you can be weird and different. That doesn't make either one of us wrong, crazy, stupid, or incompetent. It makes us human and different. State of North Carolina recognizes the right to choose and the right to be stupid. The purpose of guardianship is to assist the ward to exercise his or her rights, to honor the choices the ward would make if they could make and communicate their choices. You suddenly become competent tomorrow. I become your guardian. It's my job to find out about your life, how you lived your life, what your lifestyle was, what choices you made, so that when those choices come up again now that you're incompetent, I can make the choices to the best of my ability that you would have made when you could, to respect what you wanted and how you've always lived your life. If you made it to be 60 or 70, you don't need to tell you those first 70 years were wrong, just because you now need help. Oops. And get in the way. All right. The purpose of guardianship is not to try to control someone. It's not legal and it won't work. A ward who is physically and mentally capable can walk out of the facility anytime they want to. All the guardian can do is call the cops every hour, every 30 minutes, or 15 minutes, ever, and be brought back. Sooner or later, you're either going to get better at hiding from the police, they're going to get tired of chasing you, you're going to end up dead somewhere, or somebody's going to kick you out and repeat this somewhere else. They can't refuse, someone with a guardian can refuse to take any and all medications. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told, you can take guardian and make them take your medicine. I can't do that. Unless I get a court order to strap them down and inject them every how many times a day they get medicine. And can you imagine how traumatizing that would be? Would you want that done to yourself or your family members? You cannot make anyone take medicine, even if they have an argument. You can suggest it. You can make sure that they get a chance to talk to doctors and to get educated about it. But the final choice is theirs because it's their body. They can leave a facility and they can do drugs. Or maybe rent an apartment. Or, whoever the guardian is, rent an apartment. Drugs are legal, drugs are bad for you, drugs will kill you in the end. But again, that is their choice, that is their right. I don't have to agree with it, but I can have to respect it. They have the right to have sex. Dear Lord, the number of times I've been told, oh my Lord, she's out living on the street, she could be pregnant. And? You all have the right to have a sex life too. So does somebody who's incompetent. So does the homeless person on the bench or across town or under the bridge, wherever they might be. They cannot be forced to use birth control. I know. Someone who's schizophrenic, wants substance abuse, to get pregnant. They may be a DSS case eventually, but we can't make them. They have that right. Actually, had a lawyer ask me to, as a guardian, would I guarantee permanent birth control? I said, no, that's illegal. Sterilization is illegal. You can't do that. DSS does not have access to any shortcuts or services or access to any resources that the general public can't access as well, nor does anybody who has guardianship. It takes me 6 months to get someone with disability just like it does anybody else, sometimes a year, sometimes a year and a half. It takes me the 45 to 60 days, 90 days to get Medicaid either approved or denied. I can get turned down by a place that doesn't want to rent my ward just like they can turn down anybody else. I can't make a facility admit my person on a holiday weekend, and I was actually asked that one time. Can't you make them take them? No, the business office is closed, it's a 3-day holiday, I can't do anything. Y'all been dealing with this problem for 3 years, you want me to work magic in 15 minutes. to live in the least restricted environment possible. If it's a facility, it needs to be a community facility. The facility that offers the most freedom possible. If they can live in the community and they want to live in the community, they have the right to live in the community. There was actually a lovely federal lawsuit that said that North Carolina had too many people with non-medical problems housed in nursing homes. So we are now forced as a state to move several 6 to 18 years out of facilities back to the community. It also means that I, as DSS, or anybody as a guardian, can't necessarily stick someone in a nursing home unless their primary diagnosis is medical. If the primary one is schizophrenic, you can forget it. The problem with that is that while this is a lovely idea that everybody should get to be in a least restrictive environment and shouldn't be housed in nursing homes, and I fully support that, the money for the resources wasn't put into play at the same time. So we have a federal court order saying, get them out of nursing homes because they have medical problems, put them in the community, whatever community they want to live in, but the money did not follow for the housing, the rentals. The money did not follow for the mental health to provide the one-on-one workers, to give them the support that they need to function in a facility in the general public without having episodes. And hopefully it catches up slowly. So anything anybody can do to lobby for that, please do. Individuals under guardianship are people with the same rights to autonomy as we all have.
I have one question.
Yes, I got an answer.
If a family member assumes guardianship of somebody, who monitors the family member to make sure that that family member isn't draining the bank account and not paying the bills or whatever?
Well, all guardians report to the court. If there's money involved, you have to do an annual accounting, where you have to give like bank statements and fill out a financial form that shows where all the money went. Everything that came in, everything that went out, where did it go? Every year.
Is that what your office would do? You would be going to court with the guardianship?
No, if the family is the guardian, if they want to sign their order for services, then they can approach us for services. But otherwise, if an individual is guardian, that's between them and the court's office.
So they have to initiate.
Well, it's required by law, they do that every year. If you don't, the clerk will find you in contempt of court and will kick you out of being guardian and appoint somebody else. And then he can take you to jail, I don't know.
That's if they're guardian of the state.
And if you're guardian of the person, you have to file a status report every year, roughly 3 pages long, where you tell where the person's at, how they're living their life, what kind of activities, good things are going on, maybe they're in school, maybe they're in a training program, maybe they're not licensed. And what all you're doing. We have to, in addition, every year, report to the court as to why we're still guardian as opposed to a family member or an individual. Because we're supposed to be anybody but us. Okay, so we're required by law every year to make the rounds to family and friends and say, hey, what did you think? You know, would you like to be Aunt Sue's guardian? Would you like to try it? You know, we're right there to support you. I'll do the paperwork. You know, I'll hold your hand through this. Call me anytime. If it doesn't work out, you can always ask to bring it back in and modify it. You want to give it a try? How do you maybe next year?
So you document that.
Yeah.
How do you contact these people?
So you have to family time. Well, when we first get involved with somebody who might be a guardian, that's one of the things that we do is who's your family, who's your friends, you know, start asking people, especially in the office, hey, so-and-so, we have a case open on them. Do you know? It's Medicaid workers, who's their work now? Do you know who their family is, their siblings, their kids, their parents, anybody? Just start seeking out. It's not an ongoing process. Maybe we didn't find anybody this time, but maybe over the course of the first year regard, maybe we do find somebody. Maybe they live in Texas, they live in Dodge. It took us a while to get a hold of their phone number because they haven't had contact in a while. Sometimes we never find anybody, but we still try. Sometimes people can be even bad for their rights. Just because you have a guardian today doesn't mean you still need a guardian next year. Maybe you were in an accident and you suffered some brain damage. Then you went through surgery, physical therapy, you got your abilities back. Once you can think and communicate, you can't talk. You can write down what you want. You don't need me anymore. You need to get to run your own life. You're disabled, not incompetent. It's our responsibility to, as guardians, to let the courts know when it's time for us to get out of your life and what to do. Does that answer your question, Andrew? Hopefully the family members, guardian, I'm sure, hopefully there's other family members too watching, We get reports, hey, guardian so-and-so, got one right now, we're just gonna take to court. Guardian so-and-so is not spending money right. Guardian so-and-so's gonna see you in court in a few days, and we're gonna discuss that with the judge.
Thank you.
Anyone else, have any comments or questions?
Have my email, if you think of anything. Or county, you know, or find That's good if you do Then you need the microphone. Who is not surprised with that, y'all?
Good job, Michelle, thank you.
Thank you. And again, seriously, if you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. I want you guys to know what we do, and we can all use help. We can all use educate the community. That's the answer to half the problems that we have at DSS.
Very enlightening, I'd say probably begging you in line of me, but I certainly do.
Well, it brought something up that, two things is, if you're guardian of someone who's moved out of the county they were placed under guardianship, do you have to repetition?
They're still my guardian.
So, my son's in guardianship and he was placed in Cherokee County, he's moved to Graham County.
Every state of Florida has reciprocity. They're islands of their own.
So counties moved.
States recognize it too. You move to a different state, you still on file it.
Okay. But if we're in the same state, we're good.
You're fine.
And then, what if there's a situation like you must, you know what, when I got guardianship, I never dreamed you'd be living independently. Can that be repetition?
Yes, ma'am. It's called modification. I mean, you can do the paperwork anytime you want. You can give him, that's when you can go maybe step down from limited guardianship, or you still retain some rights to help, and he has some rights that are totally on his own, and then eventually the courts may decide, may want to modify again until he restores his rights. It's supposed to be easier to get them back than it is to take them. Taking them is supposed to be very hard.
That's what I've heard, it's harder to get reversed.
Sometimes it is, yes.
And then one more question. What if the clerk of court, you're guarding a person and the clerk of court has never required any reports?
That's all. I don't know, because I've actually been giving guardianship for people because their guardian, individual guardian didn't file their proper paperwork.
They didn't even say we had to file it. But we were told, don't give guardian of the state and person because it requires some paperwork. That you won't have to file any paperwork.
Like I said, I was actually giving guardianship of someone, of the person, because the family member did not file the status report when they were supposed to. The clerk gave them about 3 months, sent them a few notices, and finally just called us all into court and said, hey, come on here. I got something for you. Congratulations.
They must have trusted me a whole lot.
Maybe so.
Been 15 years.
That is, that is maybe they are supposed to require that, but for whatever reason, I can't answer that question. You want to have a conversation with the clerk. Okay. All right, that's a good evening.
Director Chris.
Great. So the Adult Protective Services numbers, failed to type those in there. All the numbers were the same last month. Their templates didn't change, except for the number of reports that they received. They received one for abuse and one for exploitation, and they spent their time frames on there. So none of the other caseload numbers changed. So they still have guardianship at the same amount, for FP at the same amount as last month. Child Protective Services, they've had a very, very busy month. I think a lot of that is people getting out more, people seeing more kids, our kids starting to go to school a little bit more. So they received a total of 21 reports in the shortest month of the year. And then the breakdown of how those were screened in or out is on there as well. The majority of them were screened in. And that's continued on into this month so far. They've been very, very busy. And between two assessment workers, there's 14 open investigations, 7 active income cases, which puts about everybody almost at the max of what I really want them to be at. It's not at the max max at the state level, but it's the max of where I want it to be, but, they're working through it, they'll get through it. Have 8 licensed foster homes and 1 awaiting licensure approval, so that means everything's done. We're just waiting on the paperwork to come back from Black Mountain, and then 1 family in training. We've also had some staff switch in that role, so Cassie Phelps is going to be our new licensing and adoptions worker. So once she gets all trained up, she'll be able to get out there and start doing some recruiting and training, and hopefully get this program back up and running. Now that hopefully we'll be able to get out and see more people pretty soon, as people continue to get vaccinated and things open back up. Our child care subsidy has not changed. Everything's still looking good there. We still only have 2 centers open in the county. Child support for the month of February, Pam's numbers approved. On track to meet all of her scores for the year. Her collections went up a little bit, and part of that was her being able to get back in court and for them to start doing a little more enforcement. So I'm afraid she filled up the jail at the last court hearings. So that when the enforcement's behind that, more money comes in. It's not a surprise there. Food nutrition services. I just got told, and energy, I just got told today we spent the last of our FLEAP money, so all of our low-income energy assistance. So we spent all the additional money. We got an additional $20,000, and that's been spent as well. So I think a little over $60,000 went out this year just for that program. And we still have some crisis intervention funds that will last us through July, or end of July. F&S cases, our food nutrition service cases, are staying pretty constant. All the staff is employed there and working and doing a good job. Everybody's trained up and they're sort of coming into full stride now. As well as child protective services. I don't want to say that too loud, but it's, yeah, so they're working and everybody is in a position. Program integrity is one of those programs we're still working on and still trying to get some traction under that. But we are working well. We did have a payment come in, it just did not get logged in time. So we did have 1 payment coming in for I think it was several $100 that came in last month. Adult Medicaid, you can see the numbers there. Their average processing time is 22 days. The minimum state required time is 45 days, so they're staying well within their processing times. And getting their recertifications are all done up to the 10th month. So they're ready. All the cases we're doing this month now will be reviewed in our RETA audit that will start next month. So we have our newest hired person is Kay Rowland, comes to us from Clay County, where she's had 4 years of experience in NC Fast work, and she's got to do some tweaking and learn some of the Medicaid stuff, but she knows the NC Fast program. I feel like she'll be a quick train to get her up to speed in Medicaid with Connie training her. So I think we're heading into the audit in pretty good shape, and I'm excited to have Kay come to us and get that Medicaid unit staffed, and hopefully everybody can stick around for a minute and get good at that job, and we can start feeling better and better about that. Same with family and children. Everybody's working. All positions are filled in that unit. And Water First just doing a great job of supervising that unit and making improvements and hitting all the weak areas that they've experienced. So their cases are well within time frame and doing well there, so no issues there. We did sort of softly and quietly opened up our lobby this week, and just kind of to let folks come back in the door and get what they need. We still have applications out there for folks that just want to come in real quick to grab something and leave. but they can at least come in and speak to a live person and get the help that they need. I think we're in a position to be able to do that now. A lot of folks just weren't grasping onto the phone thing out there, and we were kind of getting up and going up there and talking to people anyway. So I think we're in a safe position to do that. Melissa and I have been working on our budget. I think should have something, a rough draft of moving ready hopefully by the end of this week. So we can really start tweaking it and looking at it, making sure everything looks good. So, we've been doing extremely well, and I was told to brag on all the social workers for doing all their day sheets. We're spending down and we're reclaiming the maximum amount of money we can reclaim from the state continually. And what they call it is one of the ways is to judge that as our penetration rate. So we have to spend in a certain amount before the state will kick in a certain amount. And so a lot of counties struggled to reach that point by May, and we reached it several months ago. So we've sort of hit the max of what we can reclaim each month. And that really helps our bottom line on big time. We can start reclaiming all that time that the workers are doing. So it really shows on our budget. I think Melissa showed me the last snapshot she took is what we spent out from the county was less than what we were able to actually reclaim time-wise. Is how it worked out last month, which usually doesn't happen. You usually are doing a break even, so, or you can be close to breaking even. So.
I've been noticing the amount that's coming in the bank. It's a pretty good chunk this time.
Yeah, and it helps too that we're, got most of our positions filled, so. Yeah. And that's a quick and dirty for me, if anybody has any questions. Yeah. There's been a lot of swapping. I think every county, especially in child protective services, is having a tough time right now. I feel bad that we're one of the few counties around that are seeing decent numbers and workable numbers. Everybody else is drowning. And there's just everybody's sending out requests for help, conflict of interest cases and stuff like that. So it feels good for us to be able to help out our neighbors when they can. We got some help on one today, so by and large, it's working. It is. It feels good when they want us to help them.
Chris, I've heard since day one, primarily from Becky, the reimbursement and getting that number maxed out, and it sounds like we're getting really close to accomplishing that. So
Yeah.
thank you for that effort.
Melissa's done a superb job of that, working from home even, and they've developed a really great system to work around, being down in position in the admin unit, and then Melissa working from home for several months. And it's, they built a pretty good little system, so we're not going to mess with it.
I know when I first started, our reimbursement rate was in the 50s, like 50%. Commissioner Katie can remember those days. And, it's so good to know that we're hitting those maxes on what the state and the federal government project, when we're doing our budgets.
Because it doesn't, take much to figure out that if you're not claiming, they're not going to offer it. They're going to. And so my hope is, that if we can show the need, that they can maybe carve us out a little bit bigger piece of the pie there, going forward, so we can keep doing that, month after month, and eventually maybe some more of those funds will be available. We can show that need. So.
Those day sheets are the key.
They're the key to
doing
it.
it correctly and coding it appropriately. There was a whole lot of code time that was probably no doubt reimbursable, but they weren't doing their day sheets. And nobody was watching those day sheets and monitoring and auditing back throughout the month and we were losing lots and lots of money.
I don't think you could design a system that's more complicated to run these programs. It's baffling how complicated it really is. Every action has a different code. Whether or not the child's in foster care or in an investigation has a different code. And just the task that you're doing, if you're calling a service provider to check on therapy, it's going to be one code, but if you're talking with a parent, it's going to be a different code. I mean, it's crazy to expect them to keep up with their time to that minute of detail when they're working these cases that are, you know, emotional and hard to do. So it comes down to them taking the time to do that right. It takes the coordination of our fiscal person saying, hey, we've maxed out in this code. This code also covers that action. So if you do that action, code it to this code from now on. And she'll send that email out and everybody will change their coding to that. And it works, you know. So it's all of us that keep an eye on those different pots.
Amazing when we're communication with it.
I did have a quick update too. The Guardian Ad Litem program put out their revised numbers for the continuance rate, and I know I talked about that at one of the last meetings. Our district is still holding at about a 45% continuance rate, which is absurd, but Grand County's for 19 and 20 jumped to 70%. So I met with Judge Roy, who is our district chief judge, yesterday, and talked with him about that, let him know that that's unacceptable. I said, I know it's not, we don't ask for continuances. We come to court ready to have court. You know, it's these other attorneys in here that are biding time or not prepared, or they have to talk to their client. I said, we come to court ready. We have to have these court summaries out by administrative order. We have to have them out a week prior to court. We're ready. You know, these kids need to be, their cases need to be in court. We need to get them pushed along. So he's going to try to work with us and get us either some more court time and just keep an eye on these continuances. I know he granted one right after that, but then after he granted it, he said this case will not be continued again for any reason. So next month it better be heard.
Any questions or comments, Chris? Okay. Is there any new or old business today?
I do, this is not DSS related, but I do have a release that needs to be signed for, it's going from Queen Jones to Kay Jones. It's an open item, but if it's okay for her to sign it, y'all can approve it at the Tuesday night meeting, if y'all are okay with her to go ahead and sign, so we can get that in motion. There was a garnishment attached to it, so we need to fix it as quickly.
Is there a motion that this $499.15 be signed? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Any other? Anything for close?
I have a real quick closed session item to talk about, has to do with the budget, but also the personnel stuff, so I just wanted to close it up just for that.
Okay, is there a motion to go ahead and close for, GS 143-319, 11A146, privilege by confidential information is very likely and personnel. Is there a second? All in favor?